1989 New York State Field Band Conference Championship here at the Carrier Dome. Welcome to the 1989 New York State Field Band Conference Championship here at the Carrier Dome. Hello, I'm Carolyn Coley, and with me is Bob Codner, who's coordinator for this year's show. Bob, we have 35 of the best high school bands across the state. We have 6,000 people involved. We have a couple new things this year. We've got a different classification of the marching bands. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we do, Carolyn. The conference met here just recently and decided they wanted to change the name of the top two classes to AAA and to National. Now, they were A Open and AA Open. However, now they'd like to designate the bands in such a way that they get gradually better to the point where the national bands, who do compete nationally, by the way, and are very successful doing so, are recognized for that.
In other words, we have the best of the best, then.
Yes, we do.
Right here in central New York and across the state. Well, with that, we'll get right to the first place winner in the A category. That's the 100-member band from the Marching Blue Devils from Victor High School in Victor, New York. The band director is David Bills. the Marching Blue Devils from Victor High School in the Rochester suburb of Victor, New York. Bob, your thoughts about their performance?
That was a magnificent performance. It really was very ambitious. There's a lot of complexity to the music, difficult music, and a very complex drill. This is an exciting group that's been growing by leaps and bounds over the years with a very ambitious director who incidentally came from this area. He was in one of the high schools here, and he's just doing a magnificent job. It's a small school. It's really grown, and I believe this is their first ever.
Mm-hmm. Bob, I've noticed in the A division there are different sizes of the smaller schools. Victor has got 100 members, for example. Other bands have had 60. Does that play a part in their performance at all?
Well, I would think it would to some degree, at least. Your larger bands normally can do a little bit more on the field and have more ability music-wise.
So there's safety in numbers, in other words.
There seems to be, yes.
Okay. And I noticed there was a drum segment. Is that a requirement?
No, it's actually not a requirement, but we do have a percussion judge at these events. And, you know, it helps his scoring, I think, if they can see a percussion element within the show.
That might play some type of advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and next we will be going to the winner in the double-A category, the Mustang Band from Medina High School in Medina, New York. The 130 members in all, they're directed by Joseph McCain.
Mustang Marching Band of Medina, New York, you may take the field in exhibition.
The Mustang Band from Medina High School in Medina, New York, winners of the AA class. And a fine performance it was, wouldn't you say, Bob?
Oh, well developed, yes. They've done their homework, and they've come across here with a beautiful final show today.
Looks very clean. Now, what kind of penalties are involved in deciding?
Well, we do have a penalty judge who is down near the sideline. I think the largest thing that they're looking for at this point is timing. For example, each of these bands cannot have a show that goes more than 10 minutes, nor can they be or have field presence for more than 15. And by the way, that's very helpful to long shows such as the one we have here in the Dome, because if they go beyond 15 minutes, they're penalized for that in presence, meaning the time it takes to get on the field and the time it takes to get off so the next band can do their show. So you see, that's a very important thing. Helps us run on time.
Roughly how long does it take for the average band to get on and off the field?
Well, roughly 5 minutes, basically.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of preparation has gone into this?
Oh gosh, some of these bands have been rehearsing since July. Certainly a lot of their shows are developed during the summer months and just perfected in the fall because they've got to get on the road and do their fall competitions.
Okay, time now to see the third place winner from the AAA category, the Blue Raiders from Horseheads High School. 140 members. They're co-directed by Arthur Perkner and Yvonne Sloan.
Hey, it's wonderful to be here. It's certainly a thrill. You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. We'd love to take you home. Now, I don't really want to stop the show, but I thought you might like to know that the singer's going to sing a song, and he wants you all to sing along. So let me introduce to you the one and only Billy Shears and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Was just 17, you know what I mean, and the way you was way beyond me. Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play, they've been going in and out of style, but they're guaranteed to raise a smile. So let me introduce to you the act you loved for all these years, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
The Blue Raiders from Horseheads High School in Horseheads, New York. The third place winner in the AAA competition. It's certainly a fine performance. And Bob, at the very beginning of the program, very interesting and unusual way they opened the show. It kind of reminded me of a rock concert.
It actually was. They were playing a recording in the pit, obviously, down where all of the electronics are located, and they just did a magnificent job of doing this and working right into the instruments on the field.
And using electric instruments, is that an option that they can all use?
Yes, they can. In fact, that's become more highly developed over the years, and you'll find more and more instruments down there. There's keyboards, there's basses, that's been around for a long time, and all kinds of mallet equipment, timpani, things that just are very difficult to move on the field.
Something that was very interesting about this program as well was the costumes and the kind of the set, if you will.
Yes, they had sets in the backfield to depict what they were trying to accomplish here, which was a very well-developed theme show around the Beatles tunes. And they did a fine job doing that.
Is an actual theme important in the overall decision?
Well, sometimes it is. It all depends on how well-developed it is, as I mentioned before. If it's done well, certainly the judges take that in consideration.
And with that, we will go to the Marching Eagles from Jordan Eldridge High School in Jordan, New York. The second place winner in the AAA category, 125 strong and directed by James Ahern. The Marching Eagles from Jordan Eldridge High School, the second place winner in the AAA competition. Another fine performance and a very close one.
Oh yes, their score was only 1/10 more than the band we just saw, Horseheads. They had an excellent performance. It was very clean also, which means, you know, there are very few M&M, which is marching and maneuvering problems on the field, and they played their music very well.
We saw a couple soloists throughout the program.
Yes, we did. That's another very important feature. You notice there's been soloists in several of the shows we've seen, and it's just a case of having a change of pace here from the full organization to the soloists, and if they perform well, it's just a very nice variety, what we call the hills and valleys of a show, musically.
The hills and valleys, and M&M, I like those terms. Okay, and now we will go to the first place winner in the AAA category, 143 members from Webster High School in Webster, New York. They are led by director Paul Mangan. And the first place winner in the AAA category, Webster High School from the Rochester suburb of Webster, New York, with just an outstanding performance, Bob. I noticed that the music was quite different from the other competitors, very, very traditional.
Yes, it was, and traditional, classic in nature, and very difficult. And when you can play very difficult music well, of course, you'll get the score. I suspect that they may have scored very well in this category, putting them into first place. But when you look at the whole show, the complexity of it and everything, you can see that this is really a well-developed vehicle. I'm sure they worked long and hard on it, and they certainly have done very well today.
When is the music decided?
Oh, the music is decided very early. I would say shortly after the competition show, you know, the championship. I'm sure they're talking about next year's music right, you know, at that point. And certainly it has to be all written and ready to give to the kids in early summer.
So they could be going on to something else a lot different than for next year. Maybe more, rather than classic, something a little more fun or light?
Yes, they might decide on a theme show. They could change their whole, you know, their whole idea or approach to it. But normally, most bands will stick with what they do the best. Some are jazz-oriented, and they do that very well. Others like the classic, and they do that very well. So do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Something else that has been sticking with these students has been the parents. Now, they have played a very important role throughout the entire show.
Oh, they're the most important element within the marching band movement, really. You can't move a band literally. You know, the buses, the uniforms, the equipment, all of the very expensive instruments. The school district just simply cannot afford all of the costs involved in putting a good marching band together, and the parents are very important, not only as a support unit, but they do fundraising, and they just go with their kids, and I'll tell you, they're an enthusiastic bunch, and, well, you can tell that today.
Right. Okay, when we come back, we're going to be going national. That is to say, we're looking at the nationals competition from the New York State Field Band Conference Championship, so stay with us.
I'm Wyatt Remus. Each Friday night on WXXI, Rochester Journal brings you closer to the stories you need to know, gives you a fresh look at the news that affects your life. It's information with depth and perspective. It's reported by people who won't talk down to you. It's Rochester Journal, each Friday night at 9 on WXXI TV.
Next time on Nature, the endearing story of Mozu, a very special Japanese snow monkey. Born with severe deformities, her life is a constant struggle for survival. But above all, Mozu is a loving mother who must overcome her handicap and care for her young. Join us in the cold Japanese winter for the heartwarming story of Mozu the snow monkey, next time on Nature. Sunday night at 8.
And welcome back to the New York State Field Band Conference Championship here at the Carrier Dome. I'm Carolyn Coley, along with show coordinator Bob Codner. And Bob, we're about to see what should be very exciting competition in the national class. What actually determines a national marching band?
Well, Carolyn, these are the very, very best bands, the super bands as such. They are bands that have competed, you know, all over the nation, done very well in any of these national contests, and, you know, here they are knocking heads together in central New York.
Mm-hmm. What, can any band actually enter this class?
Yes, they can, actually. They can all apply to go into a harder class, national being the top class. There's just the very best ones there. They're the traditional bands that have been there for years. There's a certain 5 within our state here who do very well. And this is really the only opportunity here at the championship where they all meet at once. You know, there might be 2 at a contest earlier this season, or possibly 3, and they get sort of a drift of how they would compare, but this is the ultimate. And this year in particular is important because we've had so much rain over the season that we've actually had to play inside, just music shows, and the drills have not been viewed or seen by these judges here.
So the Carrier Dome is probably the perfect place for this competition.
Yes, indeed it is.
Mm-hmm. Now, we saw earlier the judges kind of scurrying about the field. I saw 1 or 2 with a tape recorder. Now, What kind of help does a tape recorder play in the judging?
They all use tape recorders, and these tapes are delivered to the directors at the close of the competition. In fact, all of the evaluation is basically on tape because, as you can well realize, you can say a lot more there than you could ever possibly write in the time allotment between these competitors. So the two men we saw on the field are one music and one marching. We call them an M&M person, and they're looking at the execution of the individual. Now, individual in marching would be how well they carry themselves, what the interval and distance is between individuals, and other views such as this. The music man is listening for mistakes made by an individual horn player and things of this nature. Now, that takes care of two. Actually, we have 8 judges. We did discuss the timing and penalty earlier, so that would take care of 3. And we have another singleton judge called the percussion judge. And his job in this particular case is to just listen for the percussion that's out there and how well they are doing. And we have 2 GE judges and 2 ensemble judges, one for music and one for marching in each case.
Okay. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that later. We should get right to the competition, though. Starting out the competition, the national division will be the Red Raiders from Jamestown High School in Jamestown, New York, directed by Louis Steppes and 138 strong. The Red Raiders from Jamestown High School in Jamestown, New York, with a very interesting performance over what is, Bob, I would say, a difficult score from West Side Story.
Oh, it certainly is. That's really what I call high-energy stuff, and very difficult stuff. And you notice their show was high energy all the way. It's just an incredible show they put together. And, you know, with a difficult book is the music, you know, as we refer to it in the business. And gosh, they did a great job, too.
Very difficult tempo changes, and you saw one group of marchers going one way and going another to very different tempos.
Yes, you also noticed there was one segment there where they were marching at one tempo, and the second tempo was also being marched by another segment of the instrumentalists as they were actually developing another theme within a theme. That's tough stuff.
Mm-hmm. And there again, we had that whole theme of West Side Story like we have in other marching band.
Oh, just great. Just great. It's going to be a great competition.
Sounds like it is. Okay, that was Jamestown High School, and next we're going to the Buccaneers from Oswego High School, Oswego, New York. 135 members and directed by William Palange.
Are the judges ready? Drum maker, is your band ready?
And the Buccaneers from Oswego High School along the shores of Lake Ontario in Oswego, New York, with just an outstanding performance, Bob.
Absolutely. I think this was probably the finest show I've ever seen from Oswego, and they are just super, believe me.
I noticed that they were, okay, they're the second band in the overall national competition. How is the order of the bands determined?
Well, actually, the scores are taken all during the fall season and averaged, and then the bands are seeded. In other words, the band that has scored the highest would be seeded first, and so forth and so forth. Then what they do is take groups of 4, like the first 4 seeds, 1, 2, 3, 4, put them in a hat and draw them, so that you don't necessarily have the best band over the course of the season last. So, you know, with this, the bands may fall anywhere. That, you know, all in groups of 4, so obviously the Jamestown band score was somewhat lower, and they were by themselves in 5th place. But these top 4 are really scored just by the luck of the draw.
So all those previous competitions really count then?
Absolutely. They certainly do, all fall season long.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, and we're going to be going right to the next band. That is the Cicero North Syracuse North Stars, 171 members, and directed by Ray Elwood.
Drum maker, is your band ready? You may take the field for competition.
The North Stars Marching Band from Cicero North Syracuse High School in Cicero, New York, with just an outstanding performance, Bob.
Always an exciting performance. This group has been one of the best top groups, certainly within the central New York area and across the nation, too. They've done very well everywhere they've ever done their shows, really.
We got a little bit into the judging aspects earlier. Now, we saw two judges on the field. What about the other judges? They are surrounding, are they up in the dome, maybe in the
Yes,
scores
as
area?
I had mentioned, they're up in the press box area, and basically there are 4 up in that area. Two judges are seated above the press box area, and they're the ensemble judges. They're looking on the field for the way the drill has been developed and how it is working in a rather subjective manner. Then we have the GE judges, which are down in the booth, and they're the people that are being affected by the show. In other words, how is the show generating itself to us here?
Okay. And next we will go to the Marching Warriors from Liverpool High School in Liverpool, New York. 145 members and directed by Joseph Celio.
Are the judges ready? Swimming. Is your band ready?
Direct the camera up there and shoot it.
Liverpool Marching Warriors, you may take the field for
Liverpool High School Marching Warriors from Liverpool, New York. Liverpool placed first in 1988, Bob, and another great performance this year.
Yes, it was a very intense performance. You could see that, you could just sense that coming from down there. Incidentally, a very nice comparison would be the Cicero North Syracuse show, which was mostly thematic in material, all Gershwin, and now we got into another heavy or traditional band music performance, and they did it very well. That's difficult music, the Carnival Overture and Russian Christmas music. It's just very difficult, and they did a fine job.
Is that another intention of the band to create emotion for, not just for the spectators, but for the judges? Do they want to move the judges?
Oh, yes, they certainly do. They want to give each show its hills and valleys, so to speak, the soft parts where they expose certain instruments, such as the reeds, which are traditionally soft, right into the, heavy, intense brasses and so forth. Very important element in any show.
Is that important, maybe ending a program with something fun or outstanding? Or...
Oh, they all end strong. You'll notice that. Very loud and very strong.
That is very true. Okay, and we will go to the last competitor in the national competition, the West Genesee Wildcats from Camillus, New York, 128 members, directed by William Davern.
Baker, is your band ready?
Horsehead Marching Band from West Genesee High School in Camillus, New York, finishing off the national competition in the Field Band Conference Championships. Now, Bob, they were the last band. Does that play any type of advantage in the overall scoring?
Well, I think all of the directors feel there's a psychological advantage from being last, but we're looking at another great West Genesee performance. They've done it for years. They've won many of these contests, and again, just an incredible, magnificent performance by all 5 of these bands, actually. It's going to be close.
It is going to be close. Do you see in the future more bands entering the national class and more competition underway?
Well, possibly. It's very hard to enter this particular classification because these bands are so good. And, you know, you're really knocking heads against the very best when you do that. And I think a lot of bands are comfortable in their own class of A, AA, and AAA.
Mm-hmm. They were just simply outstanding. What did you feel was maybe the better parts of the program?
Well, the better parts of the program, of course, are the complexity with which these bands are developing their shows, both in drill and in music. The music is just outstanding anymore. They're using good, and I stress that, good literature, good band literature, educationally sound band literature. So you see there's a lot of value there, too. The drill, of course, is very complex. It's worked by some of the best drill writers in the country in some cases. In other cases, it's developed by the staff, which incidentally can be very large in some of these bands. How
many are there?
Oh, some of these bands will have a staff of 20.
20?
That's a lot.
That is
of course,
a lot
of these are volunteer people also. But they'll have, you know, a major, should we call it senior staff of sorts, which involve the drill writer, the choreographer, perhaps, of course, the music instructor, per se. Then they have a junior staff which develops what these folks have taught the kids.
You had mentioned that another thing kind of plays a part in the overall practicing is a computer.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting. The computer-developed drill show came along about 3 or 4 years ago, but more and more of the directors and drill writers are getting into this element. And it's very interesting how this software works. It actually takes a pattern, and then you say, well, I'd like to go to another type pattern, and it shows you how to get there, and you can see some really well-developed drill shows now.
Does that help with the creativity, though, can they just kind of pick and choose
from
there? Well,
I think so, Carolyn. Actually, you know, they can call for a unique pattern and then see how interesting it is to get to that point. And you'll find some beautiful shows that way. Not everyone is alike, that's for sure.
That's terrific. Well, we're going to be getting to the results very shortly, and we'd like to congratulate all the bands for today. Here are the scores on your screen right now. 5th place was Jamestown. They had a wonderful performance, and the scores were fairly close.
Yes, you'll notice they're all really quite high. Actually, there's no correlation of scores between the classes, so you're looking at this particular set of scores as determined by that particular panel of judges, which does change during the class changes.
Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about the rating system, having a good rating or an excellent rating. How is that determined?
Well, that's new to us this year, and we're trying it out for the first time. What it does is classify a band with ratings such as they do around the country. Most of these bands will fall in the excellent category, but of course some of these national bands, depending on what scores they get, will be superior, and indeed they are.
Well, congratulations, all of them. First place winner was West Genesee. Now that the competition's over, where do they go from here, Bob?
Well, a lot of these bands will be performing yet around the country. I understand that Oswego is going out west to the Fiesta Bowl.
Tempe, Arizona.
Tempe, Arizona. And that's really quite a thing out there, and the fundraising, of course, is incredible.
I imagine it'd be very
I understand North Syracuse is going to the Rose Bowl parade this year, and we'll also be doing the Holiday Bowl while they're out there, and that, of course, will happen the first day of the new year.
It must be very exciting for the students.
Oh, it certainly is.
Well, I think that'll about do it for the New York State Field Band Conference Championships at the Carrier Dome. I'm Carolyn Coley, and I'd like to thank my co-host, Bob Codner, for joining us.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to thank the folks here at WCNY. They certainly are doing a great service for marching bands, the students, the directors, the staffs, and the parents.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us.
If you had to drop out of high school and are interested in getting your GED, call WXXI's Educational Service Office today at 325-7500.